Might Tesla have a few more tricks up its sleeve? Now that we're nearing the end of June, today let's discuss our expectations for Tesla's production and deliveries for Q2. They typically announce this on the second day of July, so that's less than 2 weeks away. How will the earnings look for Q2? And will that drag the stock down? And are we still on track for a good full year 2024? Now, with the surprise announcement that the Model 3 now qualifies for the federal tax credit, might the increase in sales in the US be enough to shock and surprise? Today, we're going to talk Tesla stock and what we're going to expect in the next quarter, next half, next year. We've got Brian White joining us. He has his own YouTube channel called FutureAza. Thank you, Brian.
It is fantastic to be here. I am in Michigan, finishing up from the big summer meetup here, where I get to wrangle in my collection of experts who keep me informed on what's actually going on the ground. And apparently the hotel is vacuuming in an adjacent room. So I apologize if it's a little noisy, but I am still here for you guys.
Actually, we don't really hear it. That's fantastic. Thank you for that.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I love it that you love that you are traveling and that's how you get this great information. I want to know what's going to happen to the stock. Now, you don't know that, but there's all these events that are happening. And so for each of these events, does the production deliveries, for example, matter? It's going to come out in July. So in a couple of weeks from now, we're going to hear this. Do you expect the production delivery numbers for Q2 to be high, low, especially with the Model 3 just announced that it's now part of the $7,500 tax credit? Is that enough time to bump that up, or is it too late for Q2?
Q2 is basically in the books. We've got a week and a half, 2 weeks. There's not much done. In terms of is it going to be high or low, I don't know what the expectations are. My numbers show 446, 529. So 447-ish is what I'm looking at. That doesn't feel like a whole lot. It feels like they will pick up in the second half. And if you'd like, I can go over how I arrived at that number. Is that what you'd like?
Yeah,
sure.
Please.
So we have seen a wealth of fear, uncertainty, and doubt propagated about production and deliveries. You'll see the rebirth of the parking lot truthers who see vehicles in transit and use that to determine with certainty that there is no more demand. And then, of course, the parking lot's empty and they say they can't produce enough. Ignore those people. Those are the silliest anecdotes possible. There is strong demand in China. We saw a number for May that was like 77,000. That's a big month. We've seen a resurgence in interest. The mitigating factor for Q1 in China and really globally is that, but Q1 is the weakest quarter of all quarters for all automakers, with very few exceptions. Q1 is gone. Demand is back in Q2. It's normal. In China, we had the release of the Xiaomi SU7, which was a very hotly anticipated car, which I imagine pulled sales from Tesla, both for the Model 3 and Y. But the initial hype is over, and the early adopters, if you go out and buy one today, you're not the cool kid on the block with the cool new car. You're the guy with the Xiaomi SU7. It's apparently a good car, but that big bump in anticipation has passed. Next factor is, I don't know if you've seen this, hasn't been a lot of shutdowns this quarter. In past quarters, we've seen prolonged shutdowns, whether for part shortages in Berlin, whether for shipping lines being interrupted, whether for, all kinds of factors. The most we've seen is a day or two here and there. And whenever you see a headline that says, oh, Shanghai is closed indefinitely, you check and it's still open. So I don't know how those are getting out there, but they're very popular. We're continuing to see the ramp of the Cybertruck, and that's a very small percentage of the total sales. And it's even smaller when you figure in a lot of those buyers would have been S or X buyers who want the fancy Halo product. So that's, not necessarily doing it. And then later when we talk about stock, I've got a bunch of considerations there we can get into, but did you have any questions about what I just said?
Right. I mean, for Q2, right, production delivery, Elon said that he expects Q2 to be better than Q1. So you're going to say the same thing because there wasn't any shutdowns and all that.
Would you remind me what the numbers were in Q1?
Yeah, I don't remember.
I don't have them in front of me, but I feel like that number is higher than Q1. I'm sure it is, but I don't remember what the actual number is. But it's still not on pace for 2 million, and we need to get, in my opinion, above 2 million. I've seen some very optimistic channels that would said this year we'd be hitting, 4 or 5 million, but they have gotten a little bit quieter about that.
Yeah. Looks like that they produced 433 and then they delivered 387.
Okay, so yeah, I am showing
But
numbers
remember,
higher than that.
That was because of, like you said, the three major crises that occurred 2 weeks before. Yeah.
Right. And we are seeing localization of sales at the end of quarter, as we always do.
Okay. So that's Q2 P&D, which may not even matter anymore. But yes, okay, they're going to hit that. And then the earnings. What are you expecting for Q2 earnings?
I don't do earnings predictions. Yeah. I don't do earnings predictions. I see, I've never found a model that I was able to work that was able to successfully endure more than a quarter. So I try and stick with what I'm good at.
Okay. And so the earnings will be announced in July, usually around the third week of July, let's say July 20th or something like that. And then when they do that, it's going to be, the thing that people are looking for, because I guess what I'm trying to get at is the stock is still very much tied to vehicles. That's certainly what happened last year, the years before. Margins started to fall. Because they saw margins fall, everybody left. They started getting concerned about hitting the 50% growth target for the end of this year. Everybody left. But this year, the story's starting to change, unless I'm wrong, regarding the stock and investors. Initially, we were worried about Elon's compensation plan. That was a real drag. Are we going to start seeing that pull off? That the concern people have about that? And then are we now going to start people realizing that this Tesla is no longer just a car company? Finally, we're going to get that out, and it almost doesn't matter what the earnings are in Q2, or no way.
So the earnings are always going to matter over the short term. The earnings over the long term is all that really matters if you're an investor rather than a trader. I had an opportunity to, in our house, in our Airbnb over the week, I had Jan from Tesla Fix and Robin from Robin TV. Robin TV is one of the biggest German language EV channels in Europe. So they have a very different perspective on Tesla and all EVs than we do. And you think, how could they have a different perspective on Tesla? And it's because we're spoiled here. We have the Cybertruck. You and I can go outside and see what this represents. We also have FSD. Europe does not have FSD, only the US, a little bit in Canada, and a little bit in Australia. That means that investors around the world have not yet woken up to the reality of what Tesla is today. They can't see what you and I see every day when we drive because they're just outside our market. So I think as this is approved in more countries, hell, even as these guys get home and post their half dozen videos each, people are going to see it. Lars from Best in Tesla was also in our house. I got to host the Europeans, and they are publishing videos about it. They are able to say to their audiences, look, I've driven it. I've not just seen it, but I've traveled hundreds of miles, maybe high hundreds of miles in it, because we zigzagged the state in these cars, and they got to see Jan and Robin both got to drive it themselves in San Francisco, which is a very challenging environment, and they are on board. They get it. So I think the stock has, even without new execution, has potential upside as international investors start to become aware of the things that domestic investors already know.
Yeah. Very good point. Globally, the different perspective people have. Of course, it's stock investors are global. It's a story stock, right? Tesla is all about the story. They were talking about the 50% growth, and then people started buying the stock. And of course, they show that they have factories now. They can produce these. Today, they have finally come back, right? Because they start talking about the affordable models based on existing production line. Then they're going to reveal the robotaxi model. Even if people think the robotaxi model is going to be years and years away still, that's fine. For the people who believe this company about, the potential breakthroughs, innovation that they're coming out, this is good news. Full self-driving is about to come. Bots about to come. But for those who don't and still look at this as a growth story, do you think that investors will start realizing that we might get back to 50% growth again? I've been hearing people I've been interviewing like you, and a few of them have said don't be surprised if we start seeing 30% gross margins and high multiples of growth again. We're in that middle. Remember that they said that we're in between two growth waves? Where are we now? Are we still right in the middle? Are we still way at the beginning of that? What's your thoughts on all this?
So this is crazy. Again, I'm still in Michigan. If you meet someone at a car event in Michigan, there is a good chance, probably a 1 in 3 chance, that they work somewhere in the automotive industry or retired from it. So I've had a lot of opportunities to ask a lot of questions of a lot of smart people. And one was, how cheap is the compact going to be? If it's a robotaxi without a steering wheel, well, there's no wheel right there. You're saving $20, $100. No, that's not the important part. What was pointed out to me was you don't need ridiculous 0 to 60 in a taxi. You don't want that. So for that matter, you don't even need dual motors. You could have a single motor with modest horsepower that does everything it needs to do. And at that point, you've just dropped a couple £100 and thousands of dollars. Could you then have, if we don't care what it looks like, if it's something Spartan and Cyber, maybe plastic panels, who knows? It could be cheaper still, lighter still, safer still. And then right there, you've not only trimmed tens of thousands of dollars, $10,000 potentially, maybe 15. Then you've got a smaller battery. You've got lighter brakes, lighter suspension, cheaper wheels and tires. You don't want those low profile performance tires on a taxi. That doesn't make sense. You would go with the kind of tires you expect to see on a Geo Metro. Maybe not that far, but like even a Honda Civic. Those are affordable, good tires that are practical and soft and give you a good ride. So when I asked, could they make a robotaxi for $25,000? The answer I got was, if you ignore the cost of the chips and sensors, because they didn't have a perspective on that, they don't work for Tesla, they'd worked for other companies. The answer is $25,000 would be too high. They could probably make this for 18, sell it for 20, 25, and still have a good margin. So this is, and it's going to be simple. So it could come out in tremendous volume with any markup you want, especially if you keep it in-house as your own product, because then you're making the most money of all.
All right, let's talk stock, right? So we've been talking quite a bit about what's happening with the vehicles, what we're expecting with the vehicles and the production delivery. And that's how it started off this conversation. But actually, I'm thinking that the second half of 2024, it's not going to be about the vehicles anymore. Although the story for that is going to be so good, right? What's going to be happening is Elon's going to come out with his, some point, they're going to announce his next compensation package. Do you think that when they announce a compensation package, given the fact that he achieved the last compensation package, do you think people will jump on this one and start buying the stock up? Or is it kind of like one of those blips? Again, people keep saying, well, all that matters is earnings.
Over the long enough term, earnings are all that matters. But this plan would certainly be based on those earnings. I imagine it would look just like the compensation plan he recently had, which means there would be monumental milestones. So the first would be a market cap of 25 trillion, and not for the first tranche, but for the final one. And that's insane. No company has ever been worth anywhere close to that. But if you look at the past compensation plan, it was also true that no car company had been worth the hundreds of billions that Tesla was. None. So this was setting a new bar. That's insane. If I wasn't invested in Tesla
Yeah.
and I saw that new compensation plan, I would be interested on that basis alone, because the first comp plan was insane. The second comp plan was insane. The third one, I imagine, will be insane. It's not like Mary Barra's compensation plan, which I don't know if you saw it. It said she'll get 50 million and all she has to do is slightly less production than last year. That's bad. That's terrible. That should be the lawsuit. That should be the investigation. So I think that stands a very realistic chance of moving the market. And I think announcing it would not present a downside. And if that third comp says that by the end of it, you will own 25% of the company at 25, 30 trillion, that would make him a 6 to 8 trillionaire, which would be, that'll get you to Mars.
That's what he's looking for. So the other conversation is, the investment community. They're looking for AI. Anything with AI, they're going to invest in, because NVIDIA showed that they're now, as of this weekend, the largest company in the world. They just surpassed Apple. They surpassed Microsoft. They're now the largest company at $3.3 trillion market cap. And they're powering the AI for many companies. Now, Elon and Tesla has fallen in the wayside. We're being ignored, probably rightly so, because it's all talk so far. We're now at not even the top 7 companies anymore. We're at $500, $600 billion market cap. Can, by the end of this year, if they show more traction for full self-driving, which is one of the greatest examples of a real-world application of AI, not only real-world application, but actual revenue and margin. So once they show and announce that there's going to be a pilot city and that they show that the product actually works, you can actually take a robotaxi, that it's safer, that it's going to happen. If that happens this year, could you now see a flood of money being thrown at Tesla investors, Tesla stock?
So this is tricky because with AI, NVIDIA is the winner, because NVIDIA is the merchant selling shovels during the gold rush.
Right.
They are also running their own little mine out of the back by renting server time, GPU time, and doing compute for customers who are basically bidding on the GPU hours. That's great. They're going to do great. Dojo is a serious competitor, but we don't know how serious yet. And I don't know if we're going to know until such time as they make it available for rent or for sale. Even then, I'm not sure we'll know. So who's going to be next? If FSD is solved within the next few months, all bets are off. It's going to go through the roof. And it won't matter what people think, because the amount of money available for that is going to be just bonkers. Yeah.
And then what do we think about the bot, right? So he's announced that next year there's going to be 2,000 bots, 1,000, maybe 2,000 in production in his factories.
Yes.
But they also said that there's going to be a major revision, hardware revision by the end of this year. So because of that, it's hard for me to see that the bot might actually, excite investors now.
So it was pointed out, I think by Alexandra, that you won't see the bot show up because all it will be doing is, by replacing workers, it just improves your cost of goods sold.
Yeah.
You've got a slightly lower payroll amount, but would you even notice 1,000 people gone out of 130, 150,000? It's less than 1%. So I don't know that we'll see the benefit before the benefit is very, very real. And we saw that with stationary storage, where the analysts were not modeling for it until it was already a multi-billion-dollar business. So which of those is going to make it happen? Any and all. I suspect we're going to learn a whole lot on August 8th, and I'm more excited about that than I am eager to try and guess what it will be.
Okay.
I think we're going to see autonomy on multiple fronts. And it was about investors. People are looking to get their 100x investment, which is why they'll invest in Bill and Ted's AI before they might invest in Tesla, which I think is a safer bet, but with a lower multiple. Tesla, you might see 10, 20x on a very optimistic outlook, where with a smaller company, you're still hoping for 100x. There are people who have sued Tesla saying, how dare Elon divert all these resources to an AI company when it should be inside of Tesla? But I guarantee you, had it been inside of Tesla, they would be suing for him not making cars and focusing too much on AI. Why are you spending all this money? It's a race you can't win. But these lawsuits are unavoidable. When there's money, everybody wants a piece.
Okay, talk about 8.8. You were talking about that. What if there is an announcement? Chinese automaker partners with Tesla, Ford partners with Tesla. Do you think that might excite folks? Because other experts are saying, well, even if that happens, it's not going to impact Tesla's bottom line for 5 years. That's because, unlike superchargers, well, let's talk about that, because the stock,
it takes time to get it out.
It takes time to take 3 years to at least for another automaker to implement the vehicle hardware, to implement the software, to roll it out.
It is at least a 4-year development cycle. Pretty much as soon as you finish your new, whatever car, you immediately start thinking about the next one, and you are developing it over those years. If you're mid-cycle, your rollout, you will have to decide, are we going to scrap what we've already spent on the next one, or try and overspend to incorporate, and it'll push it out. So if Volkswagen announced we're going to use Tesla FSD, it would be 3 to 5 years, probably closer to 5, but the announcement would happen. And when the announcement happens, Wall Street will start modeling it, because it'll be too big to ignore. And if you're looking at Volkswagen and saying, 15, 18 million cars, 10% take rate, $100 a month, we'll say even $50 a month, that is an other earthly pile of cash with very little marginal cost. So I think if there's an announcement, I would expect a bump in the stock for that, because it's a validation that you're not just a car company. You're not just you can do all these things in-house, but as soon as you start selling them, you are that kind of company without a doubt. So I would expect a jump.
Okay. I mean, there's lots of things we can't predict what's going to happen. Few people predicted what happened in the last several years, what happened in the first 6 months here with the lawsuit for Elon. But on the same time, things have turned around. We now feeling very good about the lawsuits not done and over with, but the chances and probabilities are much higher. Elon's already talking about details about what he thinks the market cap is going to be for this company. He's being much more precise. He's much more bigger scale. You're seeing the development in Robotaxi. You're seeing development in bots. You're seeing development in the vehicles. So it depends on what you said at the very beginning, right? What kind of investor are you? Are you an investor? Are you a trader? Very short term, we don't know. But long term, it's looking better. The story's better. And I do agree with people who think the margins, even if you just care about margins, that's going to be turned around. Supply chain has been resolved. Interest rates may take a little bit longer to catch up to what we thought was going to happen, but I think the margins are now going to show up, because you've got Robotaxi, you've got the lower cost vehicles, you got the unbox model, and so forth. So, okay, thank you so much, Brian. Appreciate you. Follow him on FutureAza YouTube. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.